Best town in America. Right behind Orange.
I hear you.
Or in front of Orange. In front of Orange. In front of Orange. Sorry.
George D. Yancey, District 2, 16170 Coxville Road, Gordonsville, Virginia.
Donald Brooks, District 3, 9258 Everett Road, Unionville, Virginia. Best little village in Virginia.
Ooh, Jim Hutchison, the largest community in Orange County, 525 Harrison Circle, Locust Grove, Virginia, District 5.
Is Julie Zellmaker with us?
Julie Zellmaker, District 4, 34104 Indiantown Road, Locust Grove, Virginia.
All right. It looks like we have Mrs. Thornton and a couple others. This meeting is being held electronically pursuant to and in compliance with the Continuity of Government Ordinance and/or an ordinance to effectuate change in certain deadlines and to modify public meeting and public hearing practices and procedures to address continuity of operations associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. It was adopted April 28, 2020 by the Orange County Board of Supervisors in accordance with Virginia Code 15.2-14.3. This meeting can be accessed by going to your YouTube channel, https://www.youtube.com/channel//UCNL-EM-1GR-XY-DFKCP-I8-JOQ. This meeting will be conducted remotely and there will be no physical public access during the meeting, and there will be no opportunity for public comment. On any event that we have public hearings, you are given the date and time for the public hearings, public comment, and when they have to, the deadline for submitting those. We have a quorum, seems like all present, so can we have the approval of agenda or adjustments if there be any?
So move to approve.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved to and second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's been approved unanimously. All right, how about the November 5th regular meeting minutes?
So move to approve.
Second.
It's moved and second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed have like sign. Appears to be unanimous again. The first thing we have is number 4, which is new business. It's rezoning of 20-01 Signature Station. Request for the deferral. I will defer to Mrs. Thornton or Mr. Sandra or Eric can take this. If they don't mind. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked by Bill coming in the room. I'm sorry. Sandra or Eric can take over on this, one or the other. I apologize.
Well, I'll start. We did, after the last meeting and your discussion at the last meeting, we did, as had been discussed at that time, communicate to the Signature Series representatives, John Marcantoni and Bob Dudley, a timeline for proceeding to public hearing on January 7, 2021. As I said, as we had discussed, providing that timeline, they did respond, and during that conversation, they did mention that some of their consultants that are working with them towards completing the information requirements or submittal requirements for the application, that because of the pandemic and remote work, work is not being done, quite as quickly as you would normally expect. Subsequent to that conversation, they did submit a letter requesting a 90-day deferral to allow them time to complete the information requirements. Mr. Lansing reviewed their letter of request for that deferral and has indicated that he would agree that the continuity of government, the COVID situation would give you a justification for granting such a referral. And since it is their request and not the commission's, you're not taking the initiative to defer the matter.
Mr. Lansing, do you have any further comment on that?
Sure. Just the legal analysis here is just a little different from their last request for a deferral. They had asked that we would defer based on COVID-19 related reasons for a delay on our end, which there were none. Under the continuity of government ordinance, if there is going to be a deferral, it has to be genuinely connected to COVID-19. So there wasn't really a genuine reason to do that on our end. But because they are making this request and they're telling us specifically that COVID-19 is going to cause them delays, it's going to cause an inability on their end to be able to meet the deadline for submission of materials by December 28th, 2020, which is their deadline. The analysis changes. So in consultation with Tom, we agreed that if the commission is so inclined, then it can grant it legally. It's permissible for y'all to grant their request for a deferral.
Okay, commissioners, starting with District 5, Mr. Hutchison, do you have any problem with granting their request?
No, as I understand it, they've requested a 90-day deferral. I assume that's from today as a result of the COVID-19 impact on their staff and their consultants. Is that correct?
Yes.
I have no further questions.
Mrs. Olmaker, you have any questions or concerns about their deferral request?
I do not.
I do not have any either. I just, Mr. Lansing, if you would clear up where Mr. Hutchison touched, what's the date that starts the 90 days? The date of their letter or the day we grant it?
Yeah, I'll defer to Sandra on that, but my understanding was that it was going to be 90 days from December 28th. Sandra, what is your understanding of that?
Yes, I believe that's how I would interpret their letter of request, 90 days from December 28th.
And there's no legal problem with post dating, I guess, or deferral?
No, there's no issue with that.
Okay. District 2, Mr. Yancey, you have any issues with their deferral?
George, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Given the circumstances, I think the request is warranted.
Okay. Mr. Capel, any questions or concerns about the deferral?
Nope, good to go.
All right, so then I solicit a motion to grant them the deferral from December 28th, 90 days out. What is the 90th day from December 28th, please?
I'll have to check.
Well,
Mr. Chairman,
when we send a letter, go ahead.
I said, Mr. Chairman, while she's looking for the date, which we can insert at any point, I make a recommendation that we grant a 90-day extension of deferral for Signature Station starting December the 28th, 2020.
That's a motion?
That's
Is that
my
your
motion.
motion?
Yes,
All right, is
sir.
there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Hold on.
Aye.
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 Sounds unanimous. Please
Chairman,
insert the begin date and the end date.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
one, I have thought of a question. So when, and it doesn't change whether we defer or not. But once we defer, what is then I understand what the deferral date is, but what is then the date that we have to act? You know, the date used to be January 11th. We had to act by. What is the new date that we must act by?
That's the date I was requesting.
Got it.
Mr.
Okay.
Langston, you know?
Yeah, I'm calculating that right now. Give me just one moment, if you would.
Okay.
Well, if I'm counting correctly, I mean, the date for receipt of materials would be March 29th.
That's what I've got too. So that would mean that
3/29/21.
take this up. We would take this up again. Yeah, I had March 28th, but because of
That's a
because of the
Sunday.
way we count, March 28th falls on a Sunday. So
Yeah.
that brings it to March 28th. So
Yeah.
that would mean we would need to receive materials by then, and then it would be taken up. Well, actually, our first meeting in April is going to be on the 1st of April. Is that right, Sandra?
Yeah, and that's not going to give us time to. Yeah, I mean, the first regular meeting date for April would be April 1st.
Okay, so we would take it up on April 1, and then materials would be due on the 22nd. Is that right?
The 22nd for what?
The applicant's materials would need to be going to the planning department on the 22nd, I believe. Is that right?
Oh, okay. Well, now, so we're just deferring. Hearing. Oh,
So my understanding
I'm
is,
sorry, excuse me, I was rereading, but it was postponement of the hearing. So yes.
Yeah.
If that would be the 20, yeah, so then we would need materials by, well, we would need to advertise, well, I don't know whether we won't know whether we need to re-advertise anything. We had thought we possibly would not, but if we don't need to re-advertise, then yeah, we would need materials by March 22nd
Okay.
in order to process.
That would keep us within 90 days of the January 11th deadline, which is our deadline. So I probably ought to have phrased that differently. It's really not 90 days from January 28th. It's really 90 days from January 11th. And as long as we're operating within that, we're good to go. So that would mean we would take this up again at our April 1 meeting.
Does that mean we need to modify the motion?
Yeah, that's what I would suggest.
all right, hearing those things, then, Mr. Yancey, would you accept the amendment to your motion as been stated that we will take these issues up on 4/1/21?
George, you're muted again.
I effectively make a motion that we amend the resolution to extend this to April 21.
April 1.
April 1, excuse me, of 2021.
All right, Mr. Hutchinson, will you continue to second?
Yeah, do we need to eliminate the original motion's date of 28 December?
No, not at this point, no.
Okay, then I'll second.
Okay, again, all in favor, say aye.
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 Sounds unanimous. Any nays? Motion carried. All right, folks. We have a public hearing. Well, we actually have 3 of them. Public hearings. And we'll go forward on those. ZTA -20-01 continuation. The Orange County Planning Commission has proposed section 70-3068, section 70 336G and section 73666. In order to eliminate the contradictions within the section 7064 of Orange County zoning ordinance, which provides Orange County Board of Zoning Appeals has no authority to grant special exceptions. Consideration of written public comment, none was received. Consideration of recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. So again, I will ask, was there any public comment that we did not get or did we get late?
No, sir, we received no public comment.
Okay. Does any commissioners have any, we'll close the public comment side just as a formality. Now we go into the commissioners. Commissioners, any concerns or considerations? If so, starting with District 1 this time, Mr. Capel.
I do have some questions that I've thought of, and it's kind of related to the third agenda item, where we're talking about the setbacks, but the special exceptions that the Board of Zoning Appeals could grant. Am I on the wrong item?
Possibly. This Board of Zoning Appeals actually has no authority to grant special exceptions. There is a specific a limitation on their authority that says they have no authority to grant special exceptions. And so the proposed amendment is to eliminate in these three particular zoning districts the provisions that say the Board of Zoning Appeals could grant a special exception. They have no authority to do that. So we're just proposing to eliminate that language in these three particular zoning districts.
Are you saying that the state, I don't know why, I'm having a problem here. Every time I pull up the agenda, it's the wrong one, and I don't know why that's happening. But are you saying that, and it's not your fault, Sandra, it's something on my end. Are you saying that the state itself does not allow Board of Zoning Appeals to issue special exceptions?
No.
There we go.
It's that the Orange County zoning ordinance specifies that the BZA has no authority to grant special exceptions. But in three particular zoning districts, there are provisions that allude to their authority to grant special exceptions, which contradicts the statement or section 70-64. So we're just trying to eliminate that contradiction.
Well, sure, I totally understand. I've got the agenda up now. So, but I guess what I'm asking, I'm just going to get into it. So the reduction of the setback on Route 20 was driven by a specific issue. And I mean, we can talk about what that issue is, but let's just talk generally. Hey,
Mr. Capel, you kind of jumped one.
Well, because they're related. And
okay,
I'm trying to figure something out. And that is,
continue on.
I'll just go into it. What I understand regarding the Route 20 setback issue, and I know that's the third item, is that we want to allow folks to do things within the 300-foot setback that aren't currently allowed because it's a setback. What I'm asking is there authority for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I understand the ordinance wouldn't allow it right now, the local ordinance, but can you actually give the Board of Zoning Appeals the authority to grant a special exception in setbacks? So for instance, if someone's home were damaged and they weren't able to fix that damage in a certain period of time, and then the time clock ran out, could the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a special exception to allow them to do something not normally allowed in the setback.
Well, I maybe should defer to Mr. Lansing, but it seems to me that, I mean, and I think this was some of the, maybe some of the consideration previously. I mean, I think what you're speaking about really would be a variance and requiring, you know, someone to apply for a variance. And potentially, you know, people would be able to qualify, you know, for approval for a variance. But as I understood the intent of the proposed amendment that is the subject of your third public hearing, it was to sort of alleviate the need for people where you have this sort of generally shared issue for a stretch of the roadway there, to alleviate the need for people to have to apply for a variance.
Sure, I understand that, but there's also a reason to have setbacks. So, you know, all I'm asking is from the legal perspective. I mean, I guess, you know, we're getting ready to lower a setback based on a specific, I mean, it's probably a more general requirement, but what brought the issue up was a specific issue. And all I'm asking is could that issue have been solved through the Board of Zoning Appeals? And are we actually, you know, I mean, you know, how many times are we going to lower setbacks because of, you know, for large areas of roads because a specific person has an issue? That's a valid issue.
Jason, I see what you're asking, and the answer to the question is yes, the state code does allow for a zoning ordinance to give a Board of Zoning Appeals the authority to grant a special exception, as well as variances. And I'm trying to look up the section that I have in mind that gives a BZA, or at least gives a Board of Supervisors the authority to give that authority to the BZA. I'm looking for it right now, but basically in Orange County, we don't actually do that. We don't give the BZA that much authority. The only authority that a BZA has in Orange County over setbacks is in that first text amendment we're looking at right here that has to do with porches. But theoretically, if the county wanted to, they could give that authority to the BZA.
Okay, I understand. And Mr. Chairman, I only brought this up on this issue just because we're getting ready to vote to eliminate the ability for the Board of Zoning Appeal to do variances. And it made me start to think whether we're going the wrong direction. And that's open, totally open for discussion. I'm just bringing it up because we've got one thing here to lower, to reduce a setback driven by some specific valid needs. And we have another thing here to remove the ability for the Board of Zoning Appeals to grant special exceptions and variances. And I'm wondering if I look at these two, am I actually able to solve the third issue by going a different direction with the first issue? Am I able to solve the issue in item C by going in the opposite direction in item A? And again, I don't have a strong opinion on it. I'm just bringing it up as a discussion point.
If I may, I think possibly, you know, just to clarify, the proposal and for ZTA 20-01 is the proposal is to strike language regarding special exceptions that's already in another section of the ordinance not been granted to the BZA. BZA in our ordinance really has no authority as it stands, no authority to grant special exceptions. So this specific zoning text amendment is only to eliminate the language regarding special exceptions where the provisions allow for the BZA to consider exceptions for porches. of a certain, design. So we already have restricted the ability of the BZA to grant special exceptions. We just wanted to clean up the language in these 3 zoning districts where it suggests that they have that authority, but we've already taken it away as far as special exceptions go. Does that, I don't know if that helps.
So,
or-
Mrs. Thorne, this is George Yancey. So in essence, what we are doing is correcting a contradiction of the verbiage in the zoning amendment, text amendment, eliminating any possibility of interpretation that the BZA has authority to grant waivers and special exceptions.
Right, assuming that the controlling language should be what is in section 70-64, which specifically provides that the Orange County Board of Zoning Appeals has no authority to grant special exceptions.
Sandra, I think that what Eric Lansing alluded to is that for the third item and any other similar issues, that the board, if it wishes, has the authority to establish in our zoning ordinance the ability for the BZA to do variances and exceptions. Right now, we have a zoning ordinance that says they can't do it.
Can't do special exceptions.
Right.
Yeah, if they want to amend section 70-64 to allow the BZA to have the authority to grant special exceptions, that could be done.
Which deals with the issue that Mr. Jason brought up.
It could potentially, yeah.
That's an issue we face every time we do something. The
Exactly.
board has the final authority to make any changes without consultation or input from the planning commission. That's the structure.
I don't think the board can grant a special exception or a variance.
No, that's correct. That authority is the authority to grant variances has been provided to BZAs in the state code, and the county has adopted regulations pursuant to the state code. So our BZA has authority to consider variances. Now, if the board wishes, just as we have, on our agenda tonight, if the board wishes to amend the provisions related to variance, some of the provisions at least related to variances and special exceptions, it would go through the same process that we're going through tonight, where you would have a public hearing and provide a recommendation to them.
If I can jump in, this may provide a little clarity. The code section in the state code that we're looking at is 15.2.2309. And it says Boards of Zoning Appeals shall have the following powers and duties. Number 6, to hear and decide applications for special exceptions as may be authorized in the ordinance. So it's essentially saying if the Board of Supervisors wants to give a BZA the authority to grant a special exception, then it can do so. Here in Orange County, our Board of Supervisors has decided not to do that. If under that third item related to setbacks on Constitution Avenue, again, I know we're jumping ahead there, the Planning Commission wanted to explore special exceptions as the solution rather than changing the setback. I would throw out this this cautionary note, and that is a special exception is the same as an SUP. It's just another word for an SUP. So the Code of Virginia just uses those terms essentially interchangeably.
So my question would be, Mr. Lansing, then can we do what's written here and accomplish number C also by allowing that to happen and not grant the BZA any more authority. Because we don't have the granting powers as a commission to give the BZA any authority. We'd have to submit all this back to the board to say, hey, what are you going to do? And the board has already submitted it down to us to say this is the route they want to take. So while I know we're a little bit, well, we're completely autonomous, the guidance here, I think, from the board is fix this way instead of creating, okay, giving the BZA some authority that the board really doesn't want them to have. The board of supervisors in Orange, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, has a very minimal effect for the BZA authority, less, more conservative, I guess is a better word, than the actual code allows. So I would say to the commissioners, let's take this as written, vote it up or down, and let the board deal with it. All your points are well taken. Matter of fact, I explored some of these points myself with board members and the legal staff, just to determine, can you do a special use permit and get this taken care of or not? But my concern here is that it's a contradictory in our code, and we need to have no contradictions in our own code. We should not have that. That's a complete deterrent to pay attention to our code. So with that said, Mr. Yancey, Mr. Cabell, you have any more? I'm sorry, you were speaking.
No, sir. Thank you for the discussion. I was just bringing it up in the context of that particular issue.
So, Mr. Yancey, you have any more discussion?
Absolutely, sir. I regret to say that I'm going to throw some muddy water on the table. I understand the request for number 3. I don't have a problem with restricting or not allowing the Board of Zoning Appeals to have any authority to grant any waivers or special exceptions. My concern here is if we do what is on the agenda under item 5C, and not do this for other segments of the county and the other 4 districts, and actually in District 1 that Mr. Cabell is in. I understand constituents have a need there. I appreciate that. I value that. But we've got other citizens that are facing the same dilemma with the 300-foot setback in other districts. With that being said, I throw on the table before you that if we do this tonight, in essence, we're spot zoning to a certain extent, because we're granting one segment of the populace the authority to have a setback of only 150 feet, whereas other segments of our constituents in other districts and also in that district do not have the privilege or the ability. I've spoken with 2 of the surveyors in Orange County. I spoke with Mr. Luther, and I also spoke with Mr. Grimes, and they say this actually started back in the 80s, and we're not real sure why it was started, but it is a hardship for a number of landowners throughout the county. So my question to the commission, and no disrespect to the members of the Board of Supervisors, is why are we segregating one area specifically, whereas other areas of the county should be granted the same privilege and ability that we're proposing for the folks that live between Hardwick Mountain Road and Mons Lane Road, excuse me.
Okay, this is what we're going to do. Let me make some clarity here. I guess I'm up to we have skipped from ZTA 20-01 all the way down to C. We need to stay where we are. We need to clear that up, and then we can go to C. We really have not opened that other public hearing yet. Y'all minds have opened up to it, but we haven't opened it. So for running the meeting properly and putting things back in order, let's stick with 5A at this point. And all the other things make sense, but we can't do it that way. It's just not the way it's set up to do, and let's get back in place. And I see some of y'all smiling and chuckling. We've gone way down the stream. So hold on here a second. So let's do this.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. So we're going back to ZTA 20-01, and that's what we're going to deal with now. And I guarantee you, I'm gonna get there, but not right at the present. So ZTA, all right, I have no comments on that one based on everything that's been said. Ms. Zellmaker, do you have any comments on the letter A, just letter A?
No, I believe that you guys answered my questions on that.
Okay. Mr. Hutchinson, just letter A.
I'm ready to go.
Okay. Ms. Thornton and Mr. Lansing, do you all have anything else for letter A?
I do not.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And so I'm understanding before we vote, so we know we're voting on letter A here, is we're cleaning up a contradiction in the county code. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And we need to get, that's what's happening in letter A, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I solicit a motion for letter A, the first, and I'll close the public hearing. So on letter A, 5A, ZTA 20-01 continuation, I'm closing that hearing and asking for a motion to either approve or deny what's there.
Mr. Chairman, this is George Yancey. I make a motion we approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been proved. I'm sorry, it's been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
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 So it seems unanimous. Is there a nay that I did not hear? It's not. Motion carries. Now we're going to B. And is there any public comment for STA 20-1 continuation for the Orange County Planning Commissioners proposed to amend section 54-20 of the Orange County subdivision ordinance to provide for notification to the Planning Commission of waivers or modifications of subdivisions, ordinances, requirements as may be granted by the subdivision agent. Was there any public comment received on that?
No, sir. No
Nope.
public comment was received.
Okay, we're going to start in reverse order again this time. District 5. Do you have any comments on letter B, STA 20-1 continuation?
No comments. I think we've discussed it ad infinitum, and I am ready to recommend that we forward it for approval.
Mr. Zellmaker, do you have anything from District 4?
No.
District 3, Donald Brooks has none. Mr. Yancey, do you have anything for District 2?
I concur with Mr. Hutchinson's recommendation.
Mr. Yancey, I'm sorry, Mr. Capel, do you have anything in District 1?
We're talking item B, right, Mr. Chairman?
Item B, just item B. Just stick with B.
No comment. No.
All right, so I did miss something. Mr. Johnson, on Zoom with us. Did you have any comment on any of it? A and B, Mr. Johnson. Any comment, Mr. Johnson?
Let me unmute myself. No, I don't have
Okay.
any comment on either A or B.
Okay, all right. So then I solicit a motion, I think Mr. Hutchinson tried to make it, for the either approval or denial of public hearing B, and we'll close the public hearing and go to a vote. Go to a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to recommend approval of STA 20-01.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second?
second. I'll second
It has
that,
been
Mr. Chairman.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no one has sounds unanimous. B is gone. Now we finally got to the boy, where everybody wants to get to. ZTA 20-2-02. The Orange County Board of Supervisors has proposed to amend section 70-646 5 of the Orange County zoning ordinance to reduce the required setback from the right-of-way on Constitution Highway, being Virginia Route 20 between Hardwick Mountain Drive and Mars Lane in Barboursville vicinity from 300 to 150 feet. Is there any public comment on that?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes.
sorry, excuse me. I think what is appropriate here is to open your public hearing, because this is a new matter, a new public hearing matter on this agenda. So we need to
Okay.
open a public hearing and go from
Okay, okay, we'll open a public hearing on this one, and this one, we're gonna need to set a date on it also for comments, correct?
Yes, and actually, when I did the public hearing notice for tonight's meeting, I sort of made the assumption, when of course we could change this, I think, but I made the assumption that you may not want to have a second meeting in December. And I advertised the comment deadline for December 30th.
They say never assume. They say never assume, but you're exactly right, because I do not intend to have a second meeting in December.
I thought that might be a little bit safe, so.
Yeah, we're not gonna have a second meeting in December, I don't believe, and we're gonna have next meeting in January. All right, so we'll ask Ms. Thornton to go, then we'll ask Mr. Lansing to go, then we'll start at the top with Mr. Capella again for the beginning of this public hearing.
Okay, well, as I had understood, the request, and we did have a brief discussion at your last meeting when you voted to schedule this for public hearing tonight. I drafted language to add to section 70-646 in the zoning ordinance, subsection 5, which reads Constitution Highway, Virginia Route 20, south of the town of Orange, north of Spotswood Trail, US Route 33 in Barboursville. And of course, this is all pertaining to setbacks, 300 feet, with the addition or proposed addition of language that says, except that between Hardwick Mountain Drive and Maud's Lane, the minimum required setback shall be 150 feet. So you will see in your package, we did have a map prepared, by our GIS specialist, which depicts the application of the 300-foot setback that currently applies, and then the proposed 150-foot setback. This particular segment of Constitution Highway does lie outside the Barboursville Village Overlay District and is less than 1 mile in length. As may be noted on the map and as measured in our county GIS, application of a 300-foot setback on a number of the small existing lots, particularly on the northwest side of Route 20, but also on the southeast side, would completely eliminate any buildable area on the lot. In some cases, the 300-foot setback includes the entire parcel and extends to an adjacent parcel. Along this segment of Route 20, there are at least 10 existing non-conforming parcels with respect to area under the current zoning. A reduction in the setback would reduce the instances in which a variance would be required for construction. And moreover, I believe it could be argued that this situation is one that is of so general or recurring a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to the ordinance. And I would refer you to section of Virginia Code section 15.2-2309.2.
Okay, Mr. Lansing, you have anything to add to this?
No, Mr. Chairman, but if anyone has any questions about the legal workings or ramifications of this, I'm open.
Okay. Mr. Capel?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I have a couple of minutes, since I'm kind of the one who's brought this before the board.
Absolutely.
Could I have a couple of minutes to speak to this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. One thing I've learned in my time in public service is when very often there's a problem, and you can either go ahead and solve the problem, or you can decide that you're going to solve all the problems. And the problem when you decide you're going to solve all the problems is you never solve any problems. You wind up in details and arguments, and nothing ever happens. So this was an attempt on my part to address a situation that should never have come about. Sometime back in the 80s, I'm guessing it's at least 25 years ago, because this 300-foot setback was in place. I know it was in place in 1996. The decision was made to put 300-foot setback on this stretch of road to preserve it because of the view shed and so forth and so on. The problem in this particular case was the barn was burning and the horse had already left it. These houses were already built. This stretch of road should never have been included, in my opinion, should never have been included in this effort. It's like saying that a portion of the county should be only open space after it's already built up in housing developments. I mean, it simply didn't make any sense. So by going in, I felt very narrowly and defining this area to be changed from Hardwick Mountain Road to Maud's Lane. It was simply to kind of snap back to reality and go back to where this should have been all along, without getting into any of the underlying issues that, for instance, Mr. Yancey was speaking of, and Mr. Grimes in his letter got into. I do want to make an additional point, which is that the 300-foot setback exists on only two roads. It exists on the section of Route 20 that is between the Barboursville Overlay District and the town of Orange. The only other section of road that it's on is on Route 231 north of the town of Gordonsville. So that would be from 231 to the Madison County line. Those are the only two sections of road that have 300-foot setbacks in Orange County. There are no other roads that have a 300-foot setback. The difference for me between this section of road and the 231 from Gordonsville to Madison County line, and for most of the rest of 20 into the town of Orange, to me, there's a very obvious difference in how those areas are built out. So, for me, this was kind of a simple call. We'll take out this area that was already built out 35, 40 years ago, and in some cases much longer than that. And we will really make the regulation what it should have been all along. One more point, and I'll shut up. The 150 feet that we're proposing would bring, and I'm trying to talk and click between windows here at the same time. It would bring that section of Route 20 into the same condition as Route 15 north of the town of Orange, which also has 150-foot setback. All of the other primary roads in the county have 100-foot setbacks. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of the history of it from my point of view, and why I wanted to address that. And we have an area, as Sandra kind of alluded to, that is the entire area is really one big. There would be a need for one big variance, so this would take care of of that and kind of deal with reality instead of with no need to get into some of these larger issues that have also been raised and are also valid. Done.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Capel, District 1, please.
Yeah, so Mr. Johnson, I really appreciate that explanation, and I'll probably be remiss in saying this, but I actually, after hearing you explain it that way, I actually agree with you. It actually makes sense. And also my suggestion about the BZA, as I've thought about it sitting here, you know, that actually opens a can of worms all over the county. And so I'll retract my suggestion that maybe an alternative to this would be to change the way we deal with the BZA. And I regretfully tend to agree with you, Mr. Johnson. Just as a joke, you know, I'm joking.
Mr. Yancey, District 2.
I sincerely appreciate Mr. Johnson's position. However, I still contend if there are two byways, why are we singling out one specific area and not covering the other areas that are affected by the 300 feet? There is a house between the old Somerset Center store and the church that was built in 1955. And because the owners decided to put it on the rear of the lot, they are not able to do anything else in terms of adding an addition or not on the front. You know, I understand the need, but I also understand we need to look out for all citizens, not just specific citizens. And in conclusion, our brethren in Albemarle and Madison County do not have this requirement.
Do not have what?
That's all of a 300 and scenic byways.
Oh, okay, okay. Are you concluded?
Yes, sir. I've already muddied the water enough.
Okay. You know, well, you're fine. So for me, I think when I think about it, I think Mr. Johnson said something I didn't think about, but he put it in plain terms that we can't fix everything for everybody. We can't be everything for everybody, but we can fix it what comes to us. And Mr. Yancey is correct that somebody's going to be helped and somebody's going to be harmed or somebody's going to be left. And that's just pretty much the way life is. It's that some things go well for others and don't go so well for others, and trying to make things work out in a fair way. But I walked out of my own door, and if anybody knows where I live, off of 617 Everona State Road, tractor trailers go up and down the road. I mean, it's a pretty busy highway. I got one of the largest greenhouses on the East Coast within 2 miles of my house, so it's a heavily traveled road. But if my house had a 300-foot setback and it caught on fire and burned to where I couldn't repair it, I couldn't replace it. I actually off of the state highway 186 feet. And as I think about that in my house and who may be affected by it, I have to say, you know, certain hardships people don't bring on themselves, other hardships they do. And I think when it was done, it was done in good faith. I do not believe anybody was trying to harm anyone. They were trying to protect a certain gateway to Montpelier and whatever the historical proffers they could put up there. So, but I also don't think they thought into it to that if someone had a crisis, then what? I don't think any thought was given to if a crisis happens, then what? And so a crisis happened. Now what? And we're obligated to fix and return a person back or property back to normalcy. And normalcy so they can have a home. That's just normalcy. That's pretty much all we want in America. A good job, a home, and a few bucks. If we get that, we're ready to go. And so with all that said, with the humility side of it, I think this was an error at that time because they didn't consider what could happen. But I think they were trying to protect an interest at that time. With all that said, I think that the required setback needs to be reduced as proposed. And that's my thoughts on it. Mrs. Zolmaker, you can go forward.
Yeah, I appreciate the explanations on the setback. I guess I'd like to know more about why the 300 was chosen, and I think Mr. Yancey has some good points there about fixing the problem for other people too. So I'd like to know more about that.
Okay, Mr. Hutchinson?
The effort here will solve this problem. I guess I'm more concerned about the other potential problems that we'll have in the county that I classify this, and maybe wrongly so, and I go back to Eric's comment, as a special exception, which I think this body can deal with. Maybe to deal with all of these potential looming problems that have been elaborated on, maybe we're looking at the wrong tool. Is it in fact possible for the citizens that have a potential problem with the setback area, for whatever reason, to submit a SUP requiring a special exception and let the commission deal with it?
Eric, you can jump in here on that, but I was kind of told you really don't have a SUP issue here. But Eric, you can help us out if you don't mind.
Well, whether that's the advisable thing to do is, of course, up to the commission and up to the board, but just in terms of whether it's legally possible to do, the answer is yes. If that's what the commission and the board wanted to do, if they wanted to give the BZA the authority to grant special exceptions from setbacks, then the Code of Virginia says that the Board of Supervisors could amend our zoning ordinance to do that.
So,
Mr.
Chairman,
Chairman,
this would in fact deal with future issues that are similar to this without us going in and modifying the ordinance.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'll keep it at that. Yeah. The BZA would be able to grant special exceptions that would allow someone, say, who wanted to go and have a 150-foot setback, to have that, even if they were in a 300-foot setback.
Is there a reason why the board did not want to grant the authority to the BZA for special exceptions?
Because an alternative to doing that is just to retain that authority for the Board of Supervisors, so that the board gives special exceptions. I mean, I wasn't there when the board made that decision. So all I can say is what the alternative is, and that is that the board can grant special exceptions rather than the Board of Zoning Appeals.
I'm just looking for a way here to deal with what appears to be a potential myriad of different problems involving setbacks without constantly modifying the zoning ordinance.
Oh, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Well,
just
I think
may I add a couple of things, just a couple of thoughts. One
Please.
issue that I do just want to bring out. I mean, it's difficult when a locality is drafting zoning regulations, especially in areas, which is usually the case. There's already some development. It's difficult to come, to craft a set of regulations where you create zero non-conforming situations. So in this particular, with respect to setbacks, as it stands right now, I mean, and to speak to the sort of scenario that Mr. Brooks described, if someone has, some sort of disaster and their home is damaged, or destroyed, it may be replaced, even if it's non-conforming, it may be replaced according to our ordinance and current, law regarding non-conformities. It can be replaced within 2 years in the same footprint or smaller. So even if this weren't addressed tonight, if someone had a situation where their house was damaged, it could be rebuilt as long as that action was taken. I mean, just exactly where it is now, as long as that restoration happens within a period of 2 years. So I wanted to mention that, I think a lot of what we're, needing to address is, a situation where you've got non-conforming lots along this stretch of highway, a number of them. And non-conforming structures. I mean, there are various aspects to the non-conformity. Another thing that I just want to mention, I mean, is that you may recommend approval of this as it stands now, but also, commit to an intent to evaluate, the setbacks in other areas. Just if you feel that there are other situations that need to be addressed, but you don't necessarily want to, create a delay, here. I mean, I think both things can be accomplished. You can further evaluate the setbacks along different segments of road in the county, and still go forward with this at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, but yes, sir.
Well,
Yes, sir.
I hate to interrupt because this is your meeting and not my meeting, but this is kind of an unusual situation. Julie had asked a question earlier about, she wanted to know more about where if I understood her question, she wanted to know why the 300-foot setback was put in to begin with. Is that correct?
Yes, I was curious, is it a safety issue or it's just for the aesthetic?
It was 100% aesthetics. The idea was to preserve these two corridors and essentially not have any development on them. I mean, that was the idea. And when I first came on the board in 1996, the outgoing county attorney, who was Mr. Atwell Somerville, impressed upon me the importance of that, very important, that 300-foot setback to preserve that corridor. We actually, in my first term on the board, we looked at making some changes, but nothing ever came of it. So, this issue is one that I've been dealing with to one extent or another for many years. But to answer your question again, it was purely an aesthetics. It was put in for aesthetic purposes to limit development along those two corridors. That was the reason for it. There's no, the safety really is addressed. I think everyone would agree by the 100-foot setback. We got a 100-foot setback on Route 3. So I think to the extent that safety is an issue, that Route 3 is the busiest road in the county. Route 20 between Orange and Route 3, which is maybe the most dangerous road in the county, also has a 100-foot setback. So these larger setbacks beyond 100 feet are purely for limiting development near the road for aesthetic purposes. Good, bad, or indifferent, that's what they're for.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lansing, if you mind, I thought let me make sure I understand you correctly. You said that the Board of Zoning Appeals could be given that authority, but the question I thought was, could you use a SUP in this matter? Could a actual homeowner come in and ask for SUP off of a setback?
An SUP is just another word for a special exception. The Supreme Court of Virginia says they're all just synonyms. Special use permit, conditional use permit, special exception, those are all just different ways of saying the same thing.
But so they could file a SUP with this planning commission for a specific lot out there, and we could grant it specifically for that one particular piece of property. Is that what you're saying?
No, not under our current ordinance. The way it's structured in our current ordinance is that
That's
an
the way I read it and understood it, but you couldn't do that. And
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to bring out, but that really couldn't be done.
Right. So just to clarify, we're kind of dealing with two different layers of law. We're dealing with what the county allows us, what the county code allows us to do, and what the state code allows the county code to do. And so under the county code,
Right.
the BZA cannot grant those special exceptions. That's the status quo here. I'm only addressing the hypothetical question of what if we wanted to change the county code? Could we do that? And the answer is yes.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is George Yancey again. In fairness to our brethren, the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commissions back in the day that decision was made, I point out to the commission members and others that unfortunately they didn't have the benefit of a GIS, the technology we have today to determine what properties would have been affected. So in essence, it was pretty arbitrary in terms of a distance. And I think we're all knowledgeable and educated. 300 feet is 100 yards, a football field length of distance, which is a fairly significant distance. I, again, appreciate Mr. Johnson's thoughts and his position in resolving a need of a constituent or constituents. And I respect that. But from a property rights standpoint, we should also respect other landowners in those two other scenic byways that may be adversely impacted if we don't include them in this decision process.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Yancey, I appreciate your opinion. I just want to point out that not everyone agrees with you. And you can say that you're serving all the citizens of Orange, but I'm quite certain you start futzing around with the view shed around Montpelier, you're going to find out that there are a lot of people who you'll find that you're not actually serving everyone by changing it. So I respect your opinion and I understand where your opinion's coming from, but I just want the other commissioners to know that there is a sizable number of people, particularly in District 1, who do not share the view and would not argue that you're serving everyone by changing those setbacks. And I can tell you as an owner of an establishment that lives off of tourism, you will be amazed at the number of people that drive those particular areas and keep coming back over and over and over again, bringing their money to Orange County, spending their money and going home. it's actually pretty staggering now that we've been running our business there in Gordonsville. It's absolutely astounding how many people come to Orange County for that very reason. So we may think that we're helping people, but you're actually also hurting some other people. Those who rely on tourism dollars and those who have businesses that rely on these sorts of views and aesthetics.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we've hashed this around a little bit. We've got to get the public comment in. And when did you establish that date?
December 30th at 5 p.m.
And we will continue this until the next, the first meeting in January, which is January the 7th, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So this will be continued until then. We will set public comment December 30th. And I would ask that all the commissioners that have had some unanswered questions or some concerns about the setbacks, and maybe the county staff could do this for us, get all the setback areas to the ones that have the concern. And I'm sure Mr. Johnson would entertain you talking with him about it, since it's in his district. I spent some time with him about it, and he made some very compelling comments, and we shared a good 35, 40 minutes about this particular issue and why we were tackling it. So I know that he will do that also. And that will take care of letter C for the night. Now, do we need a motion, Mr. Langston, to continue it, or is it just noted that it's continued?
Yes, you need a motion.
Solicit a motion to continue this until January 7th meeting with the public comment to come in December 30th at 5 p.m.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, chair seconds it to move it along. We will ask for the roll call vote since it took a minute to get us there. Mrs. Thornton, can you call the roll for continue to January 7th with the public comment December 30th?
Sure. Mr. Capel,
Aye.
Mr. Yancey,
Aye.
Mr. Brooks,
Aye.
Ms. Zellmaker,
Aye.
and Mr. Hutchison.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0 to continue.
Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody's comment and hard work on that. Those issues always bring out the best in us. Work session petition application calendar. Do we have that prepared?
No, we do not. Tracy has been working on that, but in the press of other things, I'm sorry to say we have not been able to finish that yet.
Okay, we'll move that to the next agenda then. Any old business? Seems like we have none. We'll have a report from Mr. Johnson. Is there anything else you want to share with us tonight?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And your information source. Ms. Thornton, what do you have for us?
Just a few things, Mr. Chairman. You may be aware, but just to update you, the Board of Supervisors opened their public hearings on the special use permit for Maypag this past Tuesday evening, as well as the two hearings for the rezoning and special use permit for the potential Storeland project on Route 20. And they expect to take action on those matters on December 15th. They'll be receiving their public comment period is open until December 14th. I wanted to mention one matter, we've had a number of inquiries in the office concerning the VFW property in Gordonsville, which is for sale. The property is zoned R20 or R2 residential, and I guess that's old, historic zoning. The activity, the VFW, activity was non-conforming activity, in that district. So the zoning, I just wanted to mention the zoning is creating some issues with the potential, sale and establishing other uses there on that property. It's the fairly extensive area of residential zoning. The leadership, some of the leadership, at least of the post there, had a conversation with me yesterday about some ways that, or just to explore whether there were any ways to alleviate some of the zoning obstacles. And I just wanted to see what you all might think of having a work session discussion with them at your January 7th meeting. There may not be a good solution unless or until there is some specific proposal from a potential occupant of the property. But this is a situation where, again, another situation where this old, very zoning is in an area where a use was already established, is creating some major obstacles.
Mrs. Thornton, do not, at my request, do not put it on January 7th. We've got that packed already.
Okay.
With this continuation of this public hearing and the signature station, I think we got enough on January 7th. So if we could move that to February, March, it'd be better, I believe. Unless they gotta have something talked about right away.
Well, I mean, this was just a thought on my part. I mean, a speculative, they broached the idea of a speculative rezoning, which I could not, in good faith, encourage them to do. We have no idea what potential use might come or what zoning might accommodate, someone in the future. So, I mean, just a speculative rezoning, I don't think makes sense. I don't know whether there might be any sort of, zoning text amendment. The other thing that could happen, of course, is before you have, anything to consider specifically from them, we continue to have conversations with prospective buyers. So, I mean, it certainly is possible that something will come forward, from some, prospect that would just sort of address the situation without any preemptive action, if you will, on the part of the current owner.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
What uses are allowed on that type of zoning right now?
I'll have to look. I don't know off the top of my head.
Maybe Mr. Johnson can confirm something.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to respond to the question or go to something else?
Well, may I just say something? I mean, this is not, a couple things. First of all, this is in the middle of a bunch of houses. It's right on 33. It's not one lot. It's a number of lots together. And I don't understand. I mean, they could lower the price. I'll bet they'd sell it real quick. So, I mean, the idea that they can't get the money they want, and I don't know the folks, and they can't sell it because, I don't know, they're maybe asking too much money, and now they're coming to the county and saying, hey, we want to talk with you about changing it to commercial, no conditions. I mean, no, I don't even understand this.
They did not say that. They didn't ask for anything specific. We're just trying to
well-
explore whether there might be any, because with the different people that we have responded, inquiries that we have responded to, the zoning is continually an issue, and they're just eager to sell. Now, I have not discussed
Well,
any specific
Yeah.
zoning district with
Well-
them or anything relative to the sale or price, or, I have not discussed that at all.
Well,
I was just
I-
looking at the regulations to see whether there might be something that would provide a bit of flexibility as far as uses in that district.
Ms. Thornton, this is George Yancey. A primary parallel example of this is the old Orange Moose Lodge on Mountain Track Road. That organization, unfortunately, just like the VFW, and I would like for you all to know, my father was a lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. But in the Moose Lodge situation, the land was acquired by local people with donations and contributions from citizens. The building was built by monetary contributions and fundraisers that the Moose Lodge members had. They conducted various types of fundraising events on a continuous basis. One of the biggest one was a bingo. And unfortunately, they lost their membership. They actually lost the Moose Lodge, and it was taken over by the National Association, which had never put a penny into it. They turned around and sold it to an Orange County citizen, and all that money went out of Orange County and out of the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is another example of that potentially happening. I have very little sympathy in their dilemma. The town of Gordonsville made a good faith effort to acquire this property on behalf of the town for various needs that they saw fit, that they had, and they've been told no deal. So I think, again, the market is the market, and everybody should play by the same rules and not ask the county or anyone else to show any favoritism to allow them to enhance themselves financially.
So let's do this, fellow commissioners and staff. Let's move this to our February meeting. Let's discuss all that then. I think we're going down a road of for when staff was just giving us a quick run by what was on our table. We'll move this as a work session to the first meeting in February. We'll know what's coming up. We won't overload that meeting. And hopefully, Mrs. Thornton, if you have several people who want to attend that work session, they can be there to share with us, and then we can share back with them our concerns. But we don't want to hash it all out tonight because it is a precarious thing. I think it was a sign issue there one time also, whether they could put the right signage up because of where they were located. But Mrs. Thornton, did you find the answer out for Mrs. Olmaker?
Oh, yeah, as far as permitted uses in the R2 district, single family dwelling, 2-family dwelling, short-term lodging facility, place of worship, public use such as school, park, library, fire and rescue station, signs, accessory apartment, and the special uses permitted are elder care center, daycare center, or nursery school, keeping of animals other than those customarily kept as household pets, office not exceeding 4,000 square feet gross floor area, including professional or contracting office, cultural use, institutional use, bed and breakfast inn, and public utility facility.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on just a second. Let me make sure Mrs. Olmaker don't have anything else.
Well, I was just asking the potential buyers, did they have a specific use that they were interested in? Could it possibly be a a business that would employ, people and, in a time when people really need jobs? Would that be, I'm just curious if you knew what type of people are interested in it.
Well, there've been a variety of inquiries. The only one that really comes right to mind was a few months ago was an entity that wanted to put up or operate a training facility for people working in the electric power industry. And that training facility did not fit under any of these, the uses as defined in our ordinance.
Like a vocational or apprenticeship
Yeah.
type thing?
Yes.
Okay, any more, as we deal with this?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm just concerned how appropriate it is for the commission to discuss speculative zoning requirements. I don't see a useful function in doing that until we get specifics.
And it was, if I may, and perhaps I should ask forgiveness for even bringing this up. As I talked with them, I was thinking more along the lines of a potential, zoning text amendment. But if it seemed to be something completely, inappropriate, I didn't want to encourage an application that was not appropriate, because we've done that before, and I really didn't want to do that.
Let's leave it.
But I do think, I was thinking more along just consideration of some uses, not anything real specific, actually. But I thought it might be, as far as a work session, I didn't know whether it would be useful for you to hear about their. Yes.
So here's what I want to do. Let's leave all that conversation for the February meeting, because we can go on and on about this, that, or the other. Let's move it to the February meeting. We'll discuss it then. Put it in the work session. And if we don't want to discuss it, then we won't. But I don't want to do it now and then do it again. Let's do it in the February meeting.
Mr. Brooks, Jason Capel, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Like, I think this is a horrible idea.
I agree.
I really do. I mean, the idea that we're just going to out of the blue, and I don't think everyone here knows what we're really talking about. This is like 14 acres of land, and it's comprised of, 15, 18 residential lots right in the middle of a bunch of houses. And I think it's a horrible idea to have these folks come in and have this work session. Yes, sir.
Mr. Capel, then what we'll do, we'll back up. I'm the one that told her, Miss Thornton, it seems like this is going down a rabbit hole I don't want to go down. Take that off of that meeting agenda. Okay. Let's move on. If we get a formal application or something, we'll deal with it then. How about that?
Exactly.
That sound okay.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What else you got, man?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's all I have tonight.
After that, you don't want any more, do you? All right, so much. Commissioner's comments start with District 4. Ms. Zellmaker, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
District 5, Mr. Hutchison, do you have anything?
No, I guess we've been promised that some contractors are going to come in and assist the planning and zoning folks, but nothing's happened to my knowledge.
I would, Mr. Chairman, just to add a little bit of information to that. I mean, the county, I think we do have a contractor assisting with plat review, and they've been involved for, I guess, at least a couple of months now, and we have gotten current with the plats. My understanding is that the recruitment process for a director for the planning services function is progressing well, and that there are some qualified candidates. I don't think interviews have been scheduled yet, but that effort is progressing.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Yancey?
I have no comments, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Capel?
Just real quick, two things. Appreciate District 1 Supervisor Johnson, just the way that you're operating as the representative from the supervisors. I very much appreciate the courtesy that you've given to the commission. So that's one thing. The second thing, Mr. Chairman, I want to commend you on some of your decisions that you've made related to the pandemic and keeping the meetings virtual. I think that was very smart. As you know, if we had moved to in person, we'd now be scrambling around, most likely trying to go virtual again. And I just think it was a very good decision, and I'd like to thank you for your leadership on that issue.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure Mr. Johnson get tired of hearing this tonight. He's going to wonder what we're going to want, but his information tonight was greatly helpful, and we, as a commission, do thank you for that. I did have the privilege to go see District 3 Supervisor, Mr. Goodwin, to deliver his plaque to him. He was very appreciative. He has very little voice, so we chatted a little bit, but not extensively as we would like to have to, but he did share in a resounding voice that he thanked us so much for thinking of him, and best wishes to us. With that, I have no other comments. Our next meeting is January the 7th, 2021. And then solicit a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The move and second, they will adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, just stay right here. We'll catch you on the next meeting. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Merry Christmas.
Have a great